You must not be very competent as a driving instructor. There are kids who are not ready to drive, and you can't force that. And simply, if a driving instructor tells you that your son or daughter is not ready, don't argue, because most of them have enough experience to make that judgment. How do we get the attention of teens about these safety problems? And teens, here's where I'm sort of pretending that you're not even in the room. There are two approaches out there. Well, the first is gruesome photos. I don't know if anyone has seen what's called the Gwent County video. It was a video that was done in the UK last year, and it's a slow motion of 5 teenage girls dying in a car because the driver is texting. And it is, I forced myself to watch it. It's unforgettable, but is also just incredibly bloody. And if you don't have a strong stomach, don't go there. But I wonder about the effectiveness of gruesome photos. So there are lots of driving schools that show videos of cars smashing together and bodies lying on the roadway. But think about it. Gore, blood, guts are very commonplace. We pay money to go to the movies to see those kind of things. So I really question the effectiveness of that to try to get the attention of a teen driver. On the other hand, approach number 2 is helping teens understand their own mortality and the consequences for their families and for their community, schools, of bad driving decisions. Yvonne mentioned I'm involved with a group called Impact, Morning Parents Act, and I've given you the website here on the slide. Morning Parents Act is a group of parents who have lost teens in driving accidents, and they go to high schools and talk to the students about the impact of the loss on their family. And I've been to probably 5 or 6 of these presentations. I've been a speaker twice, and I will tell you each and every time, several hundred 16 and 17-year-olds absolutely transfixed, so quiet you could hear a pin drop in the auditorium, and it is just like no other experience. And I believe there was an impact presentation at Watkinson a couple years ago, but it may be something that the Watkinson would like to consider again. But the point is, getting at the mortality and the consequences of bad driving decisions, I think, is the way to get the attention of teens. Now let me shift gears for a moment, no pun intended. Realistically, our laws allow teens to get their learner's permit at 16. Some of them start counting the days to their 16th birthday when they're 5 or 6 or 7. Our society is in many ways automobile dependent, and it is frankly a rare parent who's going to be able to sort of say, no, not until you're 17 or 18 or 19. And it's even rarer teen boy or girl who's going to say, well, maybe I'm not ready yet. So realistically, we do have 16 and 17-year-olds who start the driving process. If you do, learn the state laws and the licensing requirements. I can't emphasize enough, lots of hours on the road. Forget about 40 hours. Try hundreds of hours on the road if you can manage it with your teen. All-weather driving, night driving, if possible, and if you can afford it, what's called a high-performance driving class or a skid school. That's on a closed course. There's the Skip Barber School, and I'll give them a plug. In Litchfield is one where they just take you out on a closed course and they teach you how to do evasive maneuvers and how to handle a skid. If my son had that training, who knows, things might have been different. There are also now more in schools simulators where you're sitting in a booth and you get a screen with driving situations. At the very least, it teaches you judgment and reaction time. So try to use all those tools to supervise your teen. I mentioned that when my son had his license for about 9 months, I started to let the tether out, allowed him to go out and take the car without a particular destination. Well, when I got on the task force, I learned from the driving instructors that was a really bad idea, because they told me about this distinction that maybe is obvious but didn't occur to me between purposeful and recreational driving. When Johnny or Susie has a route, a timetable to get there, a reason to get there, a consequence for not getting there, they're probably going to get there on a safe basis. But it's the joyriding, the recreational, let's go out for a spin. That's when the problems start. That's when you get into competitive behavior, risk-taking, the things that can lead to an accident. Passengers is the least recognized danger in teen driving. The studies over and over say every passenger increases the risk. 2 passengers or more, 5 times the risk of other driving. So just simply put, passengers are a bad idea, and that's why in Connecticut now, the short answer to the short explanation is, once you get your license, you cannot have your friends in the car for 1 year. Another thing that, again, maybe it's obvious, maybe it's just below the surface, the most dangerous hours of the day. You might think it's 11 to midnight. The most teen fatalities happen in the 2 hours after school lets out. That's when you get the illegal passengers, kids piled in a car. There is also, the next is late night driving, obviously fatigue, speeding, and then there's Friday and Saturday. But the 2 most dangerous hours of the day are the hours right after school lets out, which brings up the role of schools, which I'll come back to in just a minute. Teen cars. I talked on the blog about a recent study in Philadelphia that shows that teens with their own cars are more likely to get in a crash than those who have to rely on a shared car with other family members. And I'll credit my friend Jim McPherson, the columnist for the Hartford Courant, known to many of us as the car doctor. What is the best car for a teen? Jim's answer is, first, no car. But if you're going to buy a car, low horsepower, low center of gravity, because that's what gives you the control if there's a skid. Good crash and rollover ratings, and then if you can afford it, automatic brakes, traction control, some of the technologies that are available that make a car safer. And speaking of technology, I will say I'm least comfortable talking about this because I'm not a techie in this area. The products are complex and they're evolving, and there's just an explosion. But at this point, I will just tell you the types of things that are out there if you want to explore this further. You can get an email report of the vehicle speed of when your teen was driving. There are GPS tracking systems. One is called Teensurance. In 2010, the Ford Focus is going to have a speed regulator called MyKey. Jim McPherson just wrote about this the other day. If you're worried about your son or daughter's alcohol use, there are continuous transdermal alcohol monitoring, sort of like a breathalyzer that's done through the skin that will refuse the car's ignition if there is evidence of alcohol in the blood. There are cell phone applications that will turn off the phone as soon as the ignition goes on. That if you're worried about your kid texting or talking on a cell phone, there's an iPhone and other types of phone applications that will turn off the phone. There's another one called AutoView, which is a lane departure warning. If you go beyond the lane, it'll sound a little alarm. So if you have a technological bent and the funds to look into this, there are lots of options. Tickets, citations, fines, penalties, retraining. My advice is don't delay, don't fight it, make your teen take their medicine. Connecticut copied Massachusetts' license suspension law, and they had a hard time in Massachusetts in the first year. Parents going to court and screaming at the prosecutors, how dare you? And there's been a lot of pushback. Actually, the experience in Connecticut has been a little better, but the point is, I mentioned my son put off his retraining to the last day. Make them take their medicine right away. Get that lesson under their belt, and there will be a better usefulness for being on the receiving end of one of those penalties. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the teen driving contract. Again, if you've been on the blog, you've seen that I've spent a lot of time talking about